Listen up. We are back with another episode of the Construction Mentor Podcast. My name is Ike. I am your host. As always, you can catch me on Instagram, TikTok, YouTube at the Construction Mentor. You can follow this podcast on all major platforms, including Apple Podcast and Spotify. What are we here to do? We are here to promote the construction industry. And if you are in the industry, we want to give you the tools and mentorship that you need to take your career wherever you want it to go, wherever that looks like. Today, we have a very interesting episode. Today, we have Ken Rusk, Wall Street Journal bestseller and successful blue-collar business owner himself. And let me tell you something. Go get his book or listen to it on audio. It's called Blue Collar Cash. How I would describe this is it's almost like a Think and Grow Rich, but for the blue-collar world. It's a tremendous book. It taps directly into what I want this podcast, this platform to be about. And it even drew a few tears from my eye, believe it or not, while I was reading it. And hopefully we get to that. But today we're going to talk about that book. We're going to talk about what Ken means by CFP, what that acronym means. Powerful stuff, I'll tell you that. How to visualize and create your own dream life, specifically in the blue collar world. Different tools that he has. Hopefully we can get into buckets and crayons, what those types of things look like. And I also want to hit on some obstacles that Ken has had in his life, because just like any story, and one thing that I see that is that's common that we run into on this podcast is no matter where people are in their career, whether they're at the beginning or whether they're in their own successful business, everybody has a story. It's not when shit happens, the proverbial shit hits the fan in your life. It will. It's just, what does yours look like? And Ken has had, we've had people on the podcast, everyone from homeless to drug addiction to you name it, all type, military, PTSD. Ken has a different story, and it's one that hit home for me as a young father that I really want to tap into. So I think it can create a valuable perspective for everybody. And then finally, I'm hoping we get into some stats about the industry. Ken is a wealth of knowledge, and I've seen him fire off some pretty profound stats on different platforms that he's been on. I've seen him on Fox News, Tucker Carlson, seen him all over the place. And I think he's been over 250 podcasts. So it's not his first rodeo. Let's put it that way. So with that intro over, finally, Ken, how you doing?
Great, Ike. Thanks a lot. Appreciate it. Thanks for having me. I really appreciate that entry. It's funny because you do all these things for 30 or 40 years and you forget the path that you came on sometimes. But we all need to appreciate where we've been and where we're going. That's for sure.
So where, Ken, high level, because I want to get right into your early life as quick as possible. But who are you in the industry other than a best-selling author? What gives you the credibility to be talking about the blue collar world?
Well, I guess you could accuse me of being a blue collar entrepreneur. I started when I was 15 digging ditches and opened my first company at 23 with 6 people. We now have 200 and some employees there in the foundation business. We build houses in Branson, Missouri. We build office buildings in Ohio. We do construction chemicals, anything that we can, along the same type of line extension of construction is what we do. Probably hired, I would guess I've hired and interviewed and hired over 2,500 people in my career. Wow. Over the last 30 years. And I have seen the changes in people, back from the 80s to the 90s to the 2000s, 2010s, and now. And it's been a really amazing, I don't want to say journey because that's overused, but it's been a really amazing experience to see the human element of our business and how to navigate those waters.
And through all of that, we were just talking right before I hit record on this. I'm going to do a post later about a young man is complaining on Instagram and TikTok about his role in the industry and how he wants to get out because of, he doesn't see any other path than to become a crotchety, miserable old man in the construction industry. And I think, you look at somebody like Ken. Ken obviously went the entrepreneurship route. He's built this solid business. You don't get to 200 people without knowing what you're doing, without having some highs and lows, but ultimately pursuing that purpose and keep moving forward. And Ken's not a miserable guy. Ken's in good health. Other than the fact that he just broke his foot playing golf in Florida, he has been able to build a life for himself, though, that he does get to spend a lot of time in Florida. And obviously, back in Ohio where his roots are, when the weather permits you to enjoy your life in Florida. So a lot of people think that when they get in the industry, you're digging ditches your whole life. And Ken already just said that he started digging ditches, but now he's built this this business with over 200 people, and he's hired and had turnover of over 2,500 over decades. So it's a really good example of where you can take your career, especially if you're coming in entry level and you do have boots and jeans on and you are getting dirty and maybe your back is a little bit sore. That is not the end. You can create your own future. And there's no better person to talk about this than Ken. So I want to take it from the beginning. You had a really interesting chapter in your book where you talk about before you were even doing anything that had to do with work. And for those of you on audio, Ken's a good looking guy, but you can tell that he was born with a cleft palate, right? Because of the scar on his upper lip. Can you talk about that? Because I think it could be impactful for some young people.
Well, I think everyone needs to find their strength, and everyone comes to these crossroads. You mentioned it earlier when you say it's not if something's going to happen to you, it's only a matter of when. And I'm kind of a believer that I think probably 2 or 3 really horrible things are going to happen in your lifetime that you think, oh, how am I ever going to come back from something like this? And that's the crossroads right there. Like, I think that's the important thing, because we're all going to face these challenges. We're all going to face these insurmountable things. And for me, I was born with this horrible disfigurement, and I had it through all my early years. And, it was tough because, I was a nice kid. I wasn't a mean person. I wasn't a very large kid. So I certainly couldn't defend myself with fists. And so I remember at one point I had been, bullied enough. And I remember I was hanging around with a bunch of friends of mine, young gals and guys we were hanging out. I was probably only about 12 years old. And, the bully come up and he, hey, look at him. You look like a monster. And I'm like, you know what? I'm kind of done with this. So instead of punching the guy, I just said, you know what? You're right. You are so right. I am the monster. Look at me. I'm a scary monster. Okay. Now what else have you got? Okay. What's next in your quiver? Okay. And the girls all looked at him, and they looked at him like, you are such a complete, what? Yeah. And they laughed because he didn't know what to do. He was like dumbfounded. He had no words. I mean, he just walked away. And I realized right then and there that my armor was going to be humor. Okay. I was going to either self-deprecate humor, or I'm just going to use humor as my thing. And because you can find something funny in just about everything. I mean, you know that. Yeah. So especially this crazy world we live in. So from that point on, I focused on trying to make, situations or atmospheres or environments lighter than they were by injecting humor. And it was tough because, you get made fun of enough, especially when you're downloading all this stuff into your computer called your brain. You can go one way or another. I could have cowered in the corner and said, yeah, I'm going to be a nobody. I'm going to be this non-good looking person for the rest of my life. Or I can say, screw that. I'm going after it. And I think, I thank God for giving me that crux or that moment where I would say I had to go one way or another. And I think a lot of people, especially the people that I wrote about in my book, man, they've overcome some ridiculous challenges. And they're living great lives, and it's all because of that decision they made at that fork in the road.
Yeah, a lot of my previous guests we've had, their shortcomings or obstacles that they've faced are a lot of it's a result of situations they put themselves in. Sure. And kind of the comeback story. What I don't feel like I've highlighted enough is that you can't control the circumstances that you were born into. I haven't really shared too much of my own story, but I was born into a turbulent home. And I've had a few people on there that were born into a turbulent situation. You're touching on something even a little more out of your control or out of anybody's control. It's just the way you were born, right? And there's a tremendous amount of power if you take accountability for who you are and where you are, but there's also a tremendous amount of power if you own yourself and love yourself and just realize that you're perfect born the way that you are. Right. And there's a certain amount of power that can come from that. And it sounds like you were able to take that situation, you were able to take the way that you were born, and you were able to turn it into a superpower. I had somebody actually on the podcast that was autistic, and he's a carpenter, and he basically talked about how he's used his autism and his tendencies and some of his like finickiness and attention to detail actually plays into his ability as a very high skilled carpenter.
I'll bet.
So, you know, however you were born, especially in today's world, I think we have a lot of people telling people that they have a lot of reasons to be the victim and not to love yourself, and that there's something wrong with you. There is nothing wrong with you. It's just how you play it into your quill.
Like, and that's all part of the comfort, peace, and freedom that I know we're going to get to. Is the comfort part of it is just you have to decide, can you be comfortable in your own skin and who you are? And I think that's really, really important. And that's kind of where I was. I had to say to myself, I'm this is what I've got. Okay. I'm going to become the best freaking possible version of this is what I've got that I can be. And again, these are choices that we make on a daily basis.
So since we're there, let's just get right into it. CPF, and I know you have a foundation that is named after this. So what is CPF, Comfort, Peace, and Freedom?
So when I was writing this book, I couldn't get away from these three words. For some reason, it's like seeing a yellow Volkswagen and then all of a sudden you see them everywhere. I couldn't get away from the words comfort, peace, and freedom. I literally would see them all over the place. And I remember them forming this like glowing triangle, like they were independent of each other, or I should say dependent upon each other, and not as good at independent words themselves. Comfort, peace, and freedom is something that I realized a long time ago. We all have the ability to use the visual side of our brains. And you were talking earlier about that gentleman that didn't want to become an old crotchety man. Okay. So the difference is if you decide that I'm going to take what Elon Musk did and Stephen Jobs and Bill Gates and all these people, Richard Branson and all these people, they decided I'm going to really explore the visual side of my brain. And I'm going to figure out what I want my life to look like. Okay. Mm-hmm. And I mean, down to the most minute detail. I'm talking about your favorite cars, your favorite houses, your favorite pets, your favorite vacations, your favorite charities, your favorite hobbies and sports and everything that you want to come into your life. You've heard it called a vision board. I'm talking about a vision board on steroids. Okay. If you can use the visual side of your brain to see what you want your life to look like, draw that out and keep it in front of you on a daily basis, your mind almost automatically attracts you to that through reticular activating systems. You've heard that before. Mm-hmm. And, you know, even Tony Robbins and his son, Jarek, who I've talked to, have said there's actual science to back up the fact that if you look at something long enough and if you want something hard enough, it will come into your life because the electrodes in your brain start to fire to the point where your brain actually thinks it owns this thing already, even when you don't. And then it involuntarily puts your body into these actions that you need to go get that thing. So where does comfort, peace, and freedom come involved in this? Well, I believe that everyone's perfect nirvana, Ike, is their own unique version of that. And we're not all going to set out to be rap stars or influencers or have 15 cars and, you know, McMansions and mega yachts. That's not in the cards for all of us. Not everybody wants that. Okay. But everybody does. If they sit in a quiet corner and they think long and hard enough, everyone can figure out what that perfect life would be for them specifically. And that's what I call comfort, peace, and freedom, because if you can look yourself in the mirror and say, I'm comfortable in my own skin, I know who I am, I love who I am, I'm the best version of who I am. I'm at peace with the fact that I have limited my stressors, my financial stressors, my debt stressors, the relationship stressors, because you're in control of all that. Mm-hmm. And if I can create those two things, that comfort and peaceful feeling, then the freedom to be spontaneous, the freedom to do things that our choices, proactive choices, not reactive choices. Man, like that's the coolest thing in the world, to be able to say, you know what, today I'm going to do X, tomorrow I'm going to do Y, this weekend I'm going to do Z. I have enough calm sense in myself because of this comfort and peace that I've created, that now I get the freedom to be spontaneous, which is something, we all lead these proactive lives, or I'm sorry, these reactive lives. We got to get to leading them proactively. And that's where things like spontaneity comes in. And that's kind of the concept of comfort, peace, and freedom in the 3 minutes that I just tried to do that in.
It's really funny because I read Think and Grow Rich and your book almost back to back a few months ago. And two things that I would say about it. Number one, I did exactly this. And I want to talk about how specific and how granular we get. I literally wrote down a description of my property and where I wanted to raise my family. I have 2 young kids now. And what does that look like in 5 years, 10 years, 20 years, 40 years when they're coming to visit me, hopefully on football Sundays, right?
There you go.
I wrote that with a progression. I actually physically wrote down a number that I wanted my income to be at. And a month later, my boss came to me and he said, I want to talk about compensation. I want to lay out your income. I said, in 3 years, totally separate on my own in a notebook. I said, in 3 years, I need my salary and my income to be here. However I get there. A month later, my boss comes to me, says, I want to talk about compensation. Here's what I think I can give you. Here's your incentive plan. Hit these marks. And it was like within, I think it was like within 1% of that number.
Wow.
It was insane. And it was just by getting that specific. And a year ago, I didn't even know about the opportunity that I'm on, the career path that I'm on now. And now I have it. And with the property, my wife and I were struggling to find land in a certain state, in a certain area, at a certain price point. And I didn't even know that I was looking in the wrong area because of, I could get into this whole story about how I came across this town and the right land and stuff like that with the right topography and the right proximity to a certain major market. Here we are. And I got it at, a quarter of what I was looking at price wise, from where else I was looking. So this is real. This is definitely a real thing. So like Ken said, get hyper specific. Exactly what does it look like? Exactly what are you doing?
I will tell you this, there's 2 things. So there's such a thing as an if-then life, and we all lead those currently. And that's the reactive one. If it's raining, I get an umbrella. If it's cold, I put on a winter coat. If it's, whatever, if it's hot, so you're reacting constantly to all these stimulus that are around us. Proactive living is a little more difficult because you have to say, forgetting about all that, what do I want my environment to look like so that I can proact towards that? They did a study of Virginia Tech, and I wrote about this in Blue Collar Cash, where they took 100 people and they put them in the room and they said, okay, of you 100 people, raise your hand if you have crystal clear goals. And only 20 of the 100 people raised their hands. So they dismissed the 100 and they said, okay, of the 20 left, how many of you have those goals written down somewhere? Only 4 people had those goals written down. Okay, dismiss the 16. Of the 4 of you left, how many of you have those goals written in specific, colorful, clear, concise, mounted on your wall somewhere where you can see them multiple times a day? Only 1 person out of that 100 said that they had that level of detail. They followed those people for 10 years. That 1 person, they made 9 times more money than the other people in that control set. Why do you think that is? It's because we only use, I think they say we only use 20 to 25% of our computing power in our brain, which means you've got this other layer, these other 75% out there that's not being used. And guess what it is? It's the dreaming, the hoping, the wishing, the proacting, the visualizing side of your brain that we're not using because we're so into reacting to everything. Well, if your brain is that powerful, there are times when you don't want to get up early and go to that workout or go put your clothes on and get out into the world and work. But if you have those visions ahead of you, now you have this extra person, this whole extra brain. It's like if you had 2 heads. This whole extra brain is going, Ken, come on, man, go do this. Look at what's going on in your life. Look at how you're progressing towards the life that you want for yourself. You have goals that are 6 months, 16 months out, 6 years out, 16 years out. You have these goals. They're so clear and they're in front of you. And every day that you do a little more of this work, you're getting closer and closer and closer to these things, which provides even more fuel because of your confidence level peaking to go after these things even more. And the art of living life in an anticipatory fashion, meaning you anticipate things, just like you anticipate a vacation or a date or going out with your friends. The art of living in an anticipatory life, there is no other way that you should be walking this planet than anticipating multiple things at the same time, because it turns a whole nother energy source on within you that allows you to go after these things and say, finally, I'm in control. I'm in control of my input. I'm in control of my output and the quality of that output. I'm in control of my schedule, my day, and my time. And guess what? I'm in control of my financial gain, which means I'm in control of the life that I want for myself. It's free, Ike. It requires no training whatsoever. We all possess this. So, that is the part of life that I think people really need to explore, because it will prevent you from becoming that crotchety old man. Okay. It will prevent you from being the things that you see that you don't like, because now your world is in your hands.
So we keep hearing the word, financial gain and these numbers and these multipliers that people make. One thing that I do want to highlight, and you kind of hit on it at the beginning, is that growing rich or being super uber wealthy like a rap star or a YouTube star isn't necessarily the end goal or the result that everybody's going to have. I can't tell you, when you're young, everybody thinks they want to be rich. And then when you're old and people get more responsibilities and family, a lot of people take a lot of peace and freedom in being able to show up for work, do their job, and go home at a good living, just comfortable enough so that they can go on the vacations they want, they can live where they want, but not to have the headache of building a 200-person company and hiring and firing 2,500 people over a few decades, right? Because that's a different stress.
Sure.
So I just want to, and even a step further than that, I'm talking to more and more business owners that they want to own their own business. They want that headache, but they only want it for a team of 3 to 5 people. And they'd rather, instead of increasing their volume, they'd rather increase efficiency and that profit margin on the food that's on their plate now. And I have one example of another business owner. He shared with me, because of the platform that he's built and the social media platform that he's built around his 3-man company, some of the numbers that he's making now as a construction influencer. He's actually making more money on that than he was in his business. But he didn't know that years and years and years ago. He just kind of fell into it because of the purpose that he was chasing and because of the life that he visualized for himself. So with that, Ken, people think the reason to have a job is to make money in order to live. Where does that type of thinking get you? Is the purpose of a job to make money in order to live?
No, I think the purpose of a job is to, first off, we all need to contribute to society. I think it's innate inside of a human being to want to contribute, to add to society in some way. If you take a very small town, okay, and you think there needs to be a baker, and there needs to be, in the old days, a cobbler, and then there needs to be like an iron worker, and then there needs to be a dentist, and then there needs to be, a policeman, and there needs to be someone who builds the newspaper, delivers the mail. They all were contributing towards the viability of that town. And I think that's innate in all of us to want to contribute in some way towards, like in my business, I create very healthy indoor air environments for houses. From old, smelly, wet, stinky basements. I stop kids from having to use asthma medicine. Okay. I stop older people from having to be on oxygen. So, there's purposes behind what we do. At the same time, I think we need to give of our precious gifts, which are our talent, our time, and our treasure. Okay. And you need to create revenue to be able to do those types of things, because there's no better feeling on earth than to give back to somebody else, which is what I'm doing with my book and this course, and to shorten the learning curve for those behind us. But no, a job isn't about money, because you could take a bath in $100 bills and that's not going to get you anywhere. But the memories that you create from the dollars that you earn to get things that create family memories and friend memories. If you look around my office right now, I have nothing but photographs of things that I've done with my friends and my family, memories I've created. That's the real end game for me, which is why I say, rich as itself, that's a path to nowhere. Leading a full life with awesome memories and great family, that's the real reward.
Yeah. What I was trying to get at, you hit where I wanted you to go. But what I try to highlight for the younger crowd is not some misplaced sense of altruism, right? Like, it's not about money, just do what you love, and sunshine and rainbows, everything's going to be fine, right?
Sure,
but
sure.
There is also this notion of a lot of young people complaining all over social media that they went to college and they have a job, and their job is supposed to, they're supposed to go to work because, they're supposed to go to work to be able to pay the bills. That's the purpose of a job. You hit the nail on the head. The purpose of a job is to bring value to other people. You may not love foundations. You may not love clean air in basements, right? Like you love basketball or going to the beach or
Sure.
doing any kind of philanthropy. Or, like I always say, the best example is plumbers might not like the way crap smells. But owning that business may allow you to create memories with your friends, with your family. It may create a platform where you can serve other people. It may, maybe your passion is providing, an affluent lifestyle for your 200 employees, having that impact on your community. So that's what we're talking about here. And as long as you chase value and bringing your community true value, the reward will come. The money will come. You might work hard for 10 years to get paid, on the 15th year, but eventually it will come. And I think the construction industry and the blue collar world is the best opportunity. It's, how do I say this? It is the most guaranteed way to get that reward, get it faster, and have no limit on the opportunity to get that reward. There's so many things in what you say that could be unpacked into their own conversations. I mean, that's you're so right when it comes to these things. I mean, if you think about the difference between, and I hear this all the time, somebody went to college, $50,000 a year, $200,000 over 4 years. And now they're just trying to go out and live their life. And now they're selling medical supplies in some cubicle on the 15th floor of some office building, and they're miserable. They got this whole debt to pay off. They really didn't even want to go to college in the beginning, but they were told they had to. And then juxtapose that with the guy who said, you know what, I'm going to buy a used pickup truck and a spray power washing machine, right? Or gutters or whatever. And now he or she's making $50,000 a year right out of high school. 4 years later, that's $200,000 to the positive side of your asset base versus the negative side on the debt. That's a $400,000 swing. So I'm not anti-college, but I mean, you at least need to think about this before you just automatically follow the herd into school, because parents are getting hoodwinked that college is the only way to be a successful parent for their kid. Mm-hmm. And it's never been true. Hold on. What you just said is very important to point out. In order for them to be a successful parent for their kid, right. Not about the kid.
No, I wrote an open letter to parents on my website. And I said, listen, I get it. You birthed your child, you raised your child, you fed them, you sheltered them, you clothed them, you taught them what you could teach them. And now, for some reason, you think that the only way you can walk this earth and say, I'm a good parent, is if they have a degree hanging on their wall, no matter how much they had to borrow to get it, or how hard they had to work, or the opportunities that they had to miss otherwise to make that happen. That is just not true. It's never been true, Ike. I mean, maybe in the old days when you could, when there wasn't much in the way of paying industrial people, and the white collar people walked around with their nose in the air. Yeah, maybe way back then, but now, are you kidding me? I mean, I've got buddies that have businesses where they get to build beautiful stone outdoor kitchens and they get to do these awesome things. And they're 55, 60, 65 years old and wanting to retire. They have no one to leave these businesses to, and they're making 300 grand a year. So it's insane. I could name you 5 businesses right now that my friends wish they had somebody to give them to, and they have no one to give them to. So they're just going to close them up, and they're all making north of 200. So I'm thinking to myself, who's really right here?
By the way, the outdoor kitchen people do absolutely crush it down here in Southwest Florida, as you know.
Yeah.
There's no shortage of work for them, and they basically write blank checks, especially if you're from up north.
By the way, the guy shows up in my driveway. He's got a brand new pickup truck. It's awesome. He's got his work boots on and his jeans. He's got an Ozzy Osbourne t-shirt on, and he's got his stereo cranking, his cup of coffee in his hand. He's whistling, and he's working outside in this beautiful setting. And, he's booked 7 or 8 months in advance because there's not many people doing it. And that's the other thing. He's taking advantage of a supply and demand curve that is grossly in his favor right now, and will be for a very long time. And I used to say this: no one ever rolled up into my driveway and saw my house and went, wow, and my cars and all whatever I've had to create memories for myself, and said, dude, what degree do you have? I mean, I've never heard that. It's Ken, how'd you grind this life out? Well, I'm happy to tell you that story. Okay.
Yeah, right.
One shovel at a time. But
so Ken, can we hop into that in 1 to 2 minutes? Can you tell me how, because I saw a stat this morning. I want to say it's 75% of Gen Z wants to start their own business as an entrepreneur. Right. And I think the majority of them think that they have to go to college to do that. Maybe you do, maybe you don't. But you went from digging holes to being your own business owner. How'd you do that? And what kind of experience do you suggest young people have before they make that jump?
Oh, this is the greatest path in the world. I mean, so not mine, but what I'm going to tell you. So I started when I was 15 digging ditches. There was a fence at my high school that split our property, the high school, from the industrial park next door. And there's a hole in that fence, and we used to go through that hole to hang out at the carryout after school. Well, this industrial park had a bunch of hustling and bustling businesses with grown-up Tonka toys and all that kind of stuff that I just loved it. So I asked I knew someone who worked there. I said, what do you do here? And they said, well, we dig ditches. We fix old, wet, smelly basements. And I said, okay, I think I'm wholly qualified to do that. So I wanted my first used car, take my girlfriend out for pizza, go bowling with my buddies, whatever. So I started in the summertime digging ditches, fixing basements. And in the wintertime, when I was in school, I'd go into the office after school and work in the office, the front side of the house versus the back side of the house, as they say. So I got a good idea of learning what both of those things were like, the revenue side and the installation side and all that. And so when I was 18, my boss came to me and he said, look, I know that, you're thinking about what you're going to do, but here's an option. Our company's grown so big that we're in need of opening franchises around the Midwest. And I want to send you to go do that. So at 18, I got, a couple of bad suits and a suitcase. And I went to, Columbus and Chicago and Cincinnati and Pittsburgh. And I literally started these businesses from scratch. I mean, I had to have the walls built out and the electric put in and then the machines put in and then hire the people and, get that first job on the ground rolling. And then I'd move on to the next one. So I had what I would call an awareness degree, meaning I watched and I saw what happened. I saw what was right, what was wrong, what I would do differently. So it was kind of like college for me to learn these businesses and watch them open and grow. And that is the most amazing opportunity right now, because like I said earlier, you have all these business owners, all these contractors that are getting older, and there's not enough people backfilling them. So they're crying out for people, young people, to come into their business, shadow them for 4 or 5 years, and then buy the business from them. The business already has customers. It has a backlog. It has a reputation. It's got equipment. There's zero risk in this. Okay.
Yeah. The plane's already in the air.
It's in the, yeah. The things are already flying. So you just grab on. And so I would encourage anybody out there, go find a business that's in demand. Go find a business where someone is, maybe they are looking to retire at some point, and go hang out with those people, learn everything you can learn. And then if he doesn't sell it to you, then jump and go build your own. Go start your own company at 5 years. You don't need college to teach you how to do that. I mean, at the end of the day, when I started, like, we were using long form graph paper and pencils and calculators to do our bookkeeping, right?
Right.
So now with a cell phone and a pickup truck, boom, you're in business. Accounts payable, accounts receivable, payroll, everything. So it's so much easier. And all you got to do is find that right path. And I can tell you the simplest way to do it: go to Lowe's, go to Home Depot, go to those boards at the contractor desk with all the cards up on the wall, and ask those guys who sell to contractors every single day, what's missing in this town? What's needed in this town? Who's retiring? Who's not coming up from behind? I mean, what needs backfilled? What businesses are in demand that don't exist or are going to be on their way out? They'll tell you right there, oh, dude, if you can paint houses, find 5 or 6 guys and rock and roll.
Yeah.
If you could do this, if you can do that, I'm telling you, and you don't even need to know how to paint a house. You just need to find people that do, and boom, there's your company right there.
So opportunity costs is something that I don't think a lot of people understand. My comment section is a war zone of late. And one of the most recent comments that I read this morning, while I was feeding my daughter her morning bottle, was, somebody said, well, go to college and then go into a trade, because then at least you're educated and then you have a skill. However, my rebuttal to that is exactly what you just described with your career. It's what happened in my career. The earlier you get on track to get that experience is the best education. It's better than college. It's better than anything else that you're ever going to get, right? Experience and mentorship. The earlier you get that in your life, you were 15. I was 14, 15 when I started on a roofing crew, and then I went into a sheet metal shop, and then I was doing CAD and assistant project management. I was doing submittals and stuff and HVAC design before I could even drive a car, right? My compensation in my career has been on a curve way ahead of everybody else because of that. We have our minds in this mold where it's education in a classroom all the way until your mid-20s, when there's no reason to be putting off real world experience for that long. You can be in high school and go get real world experience at night, on the weekends, in the summer, and vacation. That's a good time to get that going and get your resume going. Well,
and here's another one. It may cost you $500,000 to do that, and I'll tell you why. So if you think of a 401k or a Roth IRA or anything like that, okay, one of the things they talk about is the rule of sevens. Your money doubles every 7 years, right? Mm-hmm. You only have 6 7-year periods in your career to do that. Okay, 42 years. 42 years plus 21 years or 18 years is 60. Most people retire around 60. Okay. So you have 6 7-year cycles, okay, to get your retirement, to get that money to double every 7 years. If you go to college and you then decide to go into the trades, you've not only missed 4 years of one of those 7-year cycles, but paying off your school debt is going to take you another 5 or 6 or 7 years. You're going to miss 1.5 to 2 cycles. And guess what the most powerful cycle is in all of investing? The last 7-year cycle. So if you decide to abandon your first cycle, you've probably lost the ability to get one more double before you retire. And guess what? That's the most expensive double of all, because that could cost you easily $500,000 to make that decision.
Impactful stuff. I love everything that you just said. That's definitely going to be a clip. One of the books over my shoulder here is Malcolm Gladwell. I'm sure you're familiar with Malcolm
Oh, yeah.
Gladwell, Outliers.
Yeah.
And in that book, he talks about 10,000 hours,
Sure.
what it is to become an expert. And I didn't realize this until I read that book. And I haven't even been comfortable with sharing my income yet, but it is way higher than most people my age. I'm only 33 years old. And the only reason that I'm not searching for, I have my HVAC contracting license. I can go start a business. I own a business. I can go do it tomorrow.
Sure.
Is that I have a national GC that is treating me very, very, very well.
So
with a tremendous upside, right? So
yeah,
there's no reason.
So you instead of being an entrepreneur, you're an intrapreneur, and they're both just as good. Yep.
But that 10,000 hour number, you look at a Bill Gates, a Steve Jobs, all these famous people, they hit that 10,000 hour mark like before they left high school.
Sure.
That means that they got their experience before they left high school. So when you're talking about that first 7-year period, don't waste that. Don't waste those 10,000 hours. The Beatles was another one in that book, right? The Beatles had 10,000 hours of playing together way before most other people did. And they played in some sketchy places, if you remember that book.
They played over in the basements of Russia for a while.
And and in some strip clubs in Germany.
Yeah. And again, if you think about 10,000 hours, most people work, 2,000 hours a year, right? Mm-hmm. 40 hours times 50. Okay. So 5 years of that is like 5 years of college. Master's degree or whatever. But I would tell you this, even a surgeon will tell you that he only learned the actual practice of surgery in a very finite amount of time in that 10 to 12 years he went to school. Right. A lot of it is medical, a lot of it is this and that, but I have a surgeon buddy, and he told me this. He goes, if you sat next to me for a year, and every year you did one more thing that I asked you to do, by the end of that year, you could perform surgery on someone's knee. And he's right, because it's carpentry work, right? It is. That's basically what it is. Now, obviously, I don't want to simplify surgery. There's a lot of things that go into all of the medical field, but his point is well taken. And that's what I'm trying to convey here. You can't afford to just blow off that first 7-year cycle as if it doesn't matter and you'll catch up later, because you won't. The time value of money, you just won't do it. There's a stat that I saw the other day that your listeners should love. And that is that you take two people. One person starts saving $60 a week when he's 21 years old, $3,000 a year. By the time he's 20, or by the time 10 years goes by, by the time he's 31, he can stop saving money and he'll have $1.2 million in his account when he retires. Okay. Now, the other guy, he decides, you know what? I'm not going to start saving until I'm in my 30s and 40s. It takes them 30 years to save only $600,000. Think of that. One guy starts at 21. He's done by 31. He's got $1.2 million in his account. The other guy has to start when he's 40 or when he's 30. He has to save till he's 60 only to get 600,000. So that's why I'm saying it's important not to blow off. And this is what I would tell you. If you get a job tomorrow and you're young, and let's say that someone's going to pay you 40 or 50 grand, I want you to look right back at them and say, thank you for paying me $37,000 a year, because I want to forget about that first 3,000. I never had it. I never saw it. It was never on my paycheck. I was never able to spend it. It's non-existent as far as I'm concerned. Okay. So if someone offers to pay you 40, thank him for paying you 37, put that first 3,000 away, forget about it. And you can say to your buddies at the bar over a beer, my retirement is handled and I'm 21 years old. How many people can say that?
$60 a week.
That's it.
That's it. And you can blow that at a bar real quick.
Oh, absolutely.
Especially today.
Especially today.
So you got the sweat equity in. You got the experience as you were young. At what point did Ken fly on his own, and how quickly did that evolve into something that resembles the business that you have today?
Well, it started to fly on its own when the picture in my mind was complete of what I wanted my life to look like. I knew the house, I knew the land like you did. I knew the cars that I wanted. I knew the pets that I wanted. I knew the vacations I wanted to take. I even knew the charities I wanted to give back to, and I knew what my hobbies and sports were going to be like in my family. I kind of had that all visioned out. And when that got clear enough, and I gained enough confidence by being, having that aware degree, being aware of what the business was doing. When that got clear enough, I was 23 and I went, yep, yeah, we're doing this. It's time. I can do this. I have the confidence. I have the drive. I have the vision, and the vision is driving everything. It's vision first and everything else second. And that picture hanging on the wall, that brochure that is my life, was the most important thing I could have done, bar none. Education experience, bar none, because I woke up every day to look at those things and go, okay, yeah, that's what I want my life to look like. Now, how am I going to find a way to go get it? Because at that point I realized, Ike, and this is a little controversial, I realized that for me, it wasn't so important what I did for a living as it was what I did with what I did for a living. Okay. I think that's very important, because I made digging ditches cool. I created a culture within my organization that digging ditches is cool. We have a blast. We have a lot of fun. We have a lot of recognition. We have music. We have food. We have, bonuses. We have vacations. We have all these things that make our company cool. And that's why I'm saying ditch digging was number 99 out of a list of 100 things I thought I was going to do, but it worked out okay because I could control everything I wanted in my life that way.
So you start at 23, which is very young for a lot of people, because that's like the age that you get out of college now, but you had 8 years experience, right? You were in for 8 years.
Correct.
Same thing when I was 23, 24, when other people were just getting their first sniff of a construction office, I had 10 years experience.
Right.
And the compensation has been such since. We've hammered that point home. How fast did the business grow? Like what types of things were you concentrating on? Was it quality, hiring the right people, all of the above? What would you say to somebody that's young, starting out and looking to grow a business?
So businesses are linear animals. Okay. They go from, let's say on your screen, right to left. They start with input, and then within the business, there's work, and then there's output, some product or service, and then hopefully there's sale, revenue, and profit. Well, Ken has to live at the end of that line. Okay. That's how it works. So my attitude was, I can't get what I want for myself, nor can my company get what it wants or needs until everybody in front of me in this office, in this building, gets what they want first. And that's very, very important, because when people believe that you have their best interest in mind, meaning you want them to work for themselves first and for you second, or the company second, they will thrive, because now they're saying to themselves, wow, you know what? I think I can get what I want my life to look like with and through Ken's company. So I'm going to hang out here for a while. And then what happens, Ike, is you get this entrepreneurial spirit that starts to grow, meaning maybe I'm not going to take the risk and buy 42 dump trucks like Ken's doing, but I am going to run this department like it's my own. I am going to own this department financially, results wise, revenue, input, output, sales, whatever your department is. I'm going to run it like it's my own company within a company, because I'm going to get rewarded for doing that. And so I was a big sharer. Okay. If we do X, I'll give you Y. If we do Y, I'll give you Z. If we do Z, I'll give you Z plus.
I'm hearing the word incentive is what I'm hearing.
But we have all kinds of incentives. We have monthly ones, we have quarterly ones, we have yearly ones, and then we have a lot of fun. We celebrate a lot. And I have the joy of watching other people build lives for themselves in a way that they see it and in a way that they can control it. And so I wanted to surround myself, long answer short to your question, I wanted to surround myself with as much entrepreneurial thinking as I possibly could get. Because if you do that, that group of people will drive your company way further than you can drive it yourself. Trust me on that one.
Now, I have something really important that I want to get to, but I think that you can answer this question in a very impactful way for people. When they go to start their business, do you have any advice regarding debt? what debt to take on to start, to grow? What would you say to people that are trying to think of ways to finance their business?
The first thing you have to do is you have to look at what your turnaround cycle is on $1. Like if I'm going to sell something today, okay, how fast can I get that dollar back? For us, it was a 30-day cycle. So we hired all the marketers first, okay,
Mm-hmm.
and we knew. I mean, one of the things that we did is we put ourselves under a gun. We borrowed $50,000, and we knew we had 60 days or that money was going to run out. So we'd be driving back home with our tail between our legs. But I knew that the cycle of dollar was 30 days max, meaning I would hire the marketing people, then the salespeople. I would create a sale. Okay, that would take me a few weeks, and then I'd have to hire the crew and buy the truck and get the tools to turn that back into $1. So we knew that at 30 days we would turn dollars. So the first thing you would do is figure out exactly what your life cycle is of turning at $1, and then that'll tell you how far you can go out, how much money you can borrow, and how safe that is. The other thing I would tell you is, if everyone's going this way, I'm pointing to the left or the right, then you should go that way. And this is what I said before. Find out what people aren't doing in your town. Okay, not what everybody is doing. Find out what people aren't doing that's in demand and go do that. And you'll probably never look back at that point.
Incredible advice. And that was clean and concise. I appreciate that, Ken. Before I get to my last topic, I could talk to Ken all day, and I wish Ken was like my dad, or I wish he was, some sort of mentor in my life. I'm always going to keep in touch with Ken because I've read his book and I've followed a lot of his content, and that's just one of many gems that he has, and he has them off the cuff. Ken's amazing. When you go read his book, look out for crayon therapy, look out for the 5-gallon buckets of life. I don't want to get into them here, but I want people to know that there's something out there, these tools with these simple words and simple items that we all know, but they're incredibly impactful. Now, as your business grew, I want to get to, a big obstacle that you had in your life and a big trauma point. If you don't mind, I'd like to talk about your daughter.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
This actually brought a tear to my eye several times as I was reading your book, because like I said, I am a young parent now, and it just created perspective. And one of the things that I try to do in my life every day, and there's a huge difference in the good days and the bad days, or the bad moments anyway, is to practice gratitude. And these chapters are one of the things that I think about. So as you're growing your business, you're in probably that third or fourth year of 7, right? So
right.
Your growth is becoming exponential. You're experiencing a lot of success, and then tragedy strikes. Your daughter has cancer. She's in junior high and she has cancer. Where was your business at that time? And, just talk about anything that you're willing to talk about there. What kept you going? How'd you balance the two? And what do you think what impact do you think it had on you and your daughter?
Well, if there is such a thing as, divine intervention or someone looking out for you, because I had practiced, surrounding myself with so much entrepreneurship. And I mean, I have people here, on my website, you'll see Tim. He's been with me since the day one. He's still here 37 years later. And I have a lot of those kinds of people. So because I had practiced so much of that, meaning I can't get what I want until all of you get what you want for yourselves first, I was able to enjoy a lot of freedom. And that was one of my 3 tenets: comfort, peace, and freedom. So I was able to enjoy the freedom of saying, okay, I need to fly. I had a friend of a friend who is an angel. He gave me his private plane and said, you go get that girl, you fly wherever you need to go and get her better. And this is where I start to well up when I talk about it, because, the kindness was just unbelievable. And so I had the freedom to take that plane and fly it all over to Cleveland and to Pittsburgh and to Philadelphia and all the places that we had to go in order to get her the best possible care. Because, you read what's on the internet and it's like, it's like gloom and doom. Like, oh my God, I mean, she's not going to make it. And she had cancer in her eye. It's a super rare thing. Most people don't get it till they're 70. And it's one in 15 million people get this disease. And so I literally barged my way into the number one doctor in the country in Philadelphia, who had a 6-month waiting list. And I said, listen, I told the receptionist, I said, you go find her right now. I'm begging you. And she did. And her name is Dr. Carol Shields of Shields Eye Clinic in Philly. And her and her husband invented these different protocols. So we went out there and tried to do what we could to save her eye. We weren't able to save her eye. But here's this amazing little girl walking down the street after her surgery looking at a homeless person and saying, well, you know what, Dad, I don't have it as bad as he does. Okay. And she's 12. So from tragedy comes strength. I mean, when I told her what she was going to have to do, it was the hardest conversation I ever had in my life. I remember taking her for a bike ride, trying to tell her this. And she's like, it's okay, Dad. I mean, we got to get rid of this because, the rest of me is important. We just got to get rid of this and let me live my life. And
by what you mean, what you mean by what she had to do was surrender her eye. They
Yeah.
had to remove her eye.
Yeah. And, I remember thinking, oh my God, this 12-year-old is the strongest human being I've ever met in my life. I mean, anyone receiving that news would be freaking horrified. And it turns out that, she came back, she still played golf. She became the captain of her golf team. She could break 80 with half of her sight. So I can't explain it. All I can tell you is, those types of things happen in your life and you had better be prepared for them. Okay. I'm thankful. And I thank these people all the time. I said, look, I'm out for probably 3-4 months until I figure this stuff out. You guys and they surrounded the wagons and they kept this company just rolling along. And, I can't thank them enough for that. But the lesson there is, don't be a hero. Don't have this ego that, oh, my company, me, I do everything. I say everything. I fix everything. I solve everything. I invent everything. I create everything. Don't do that. There's no hero in 70 hours a week, killing yourself and trying to chase dollars. There's much more success in getting rid of the day-to-day control, giving it to other people, allowing them to thrive, allowing them to live their lives. And then you win exponentially in the end. So the days of you trying to do it all, I think that's a mistake.
And now, as I understand it, your daughter is in the industry.
She is. Yeah. She decided that she wanted to become an architect, and she actually took over my wife's interior design business. And she's also designing our next office building. And she's running the show at the interior design studio and doing house plans for people and remodels and all that kind of stuff. So her and her husband are both in that business, and it's a joy to watch them take over. And then once again, I get the chance to give them my little pieces of advice and shorten their learning curve to entrepreneurship. But it's really cool. It's a labor of love, that's for sure.
And I assume that she was drawn to the industry because of your involvement, right? She probably knew what the opportunities were like. So would you say that since that's happened, has that affected you as a leader? Has it changed anything in the game? For anybody that has, something like that going on in their life, what kind of advice would you have for them to, keep going? Well,
first off, every emotion you have, and this is in the book as well, every emotion you have, good or bad, is a choice. And they're always fighting to get in there. You mentioned the 5-gallon bucket earlier. Emotions are something that once you realize they're choices, they take on a whole new dimension, because anger supplants curiosity, and, frustration gets rid of joy, and, jealousy kills spontaneity. So you make the choice what you want to put in your head, because it's going to take something else out when you do that. And if you decide to put only positive emotions in there, and I know if someone slaps you across the face, yeah, you're going to get angry. You're right. But, there's a reason they did that. And there's a reason that you react the way you do. And there's a choice that you make from that moment forward, from that split second forward. So all I'm saying is, learn that you are in a hell of a lot more control of yourself than you currently think you are. And also learn that is a gift. So yeah, money is great. Experiences are way better, but time is the most valuable asset of all. And I mean time in a freedom sense. Comfort, peace, and freedom is really the end game of all of this.
It's not that I would compare having a cleft palate to losing an eye. One's definitely a little heavier than the other.
Yes, sir.
I don't, maybe it's not a coincidence though, that you started your life that way. You went through certain things, you experienced success. And I think all of that financially, mentally, everything, in some way prepared you for that moment, right? To be there for your daughter. And the mentality that you have, everything that you just described, I'm sure, when she had that reaction about, the homeless person, even though she was about to lose her eye or had already lost it, either way, she's facing cancer as a person in junior high.
Right.
I think all of that was a buildup, to that moment. And it's a reflection of who you were as a result of things that you went through. So, incredibly profound stuff. If you have 5 more minutes, I would just like to talk about some stats.
Sure.
I have a few written down. Feel free to throw any of them out there. But as a person who is successful in the industry, I don't think you went to college. And as a person who has a young daughter, right? I think she's in her 20s. She's in the industry. So what I'm getting at is you were in that parental role where you were weighing career decisions, and she was weighing career decisions, and you were giving your advice. And I think I got this from you, but Barack Obama said college is a must, right? College is a must. Not to get political or, to advocate for one side or the other, but I think we both obviously disagree with that.
Yes. Well, here's what I would tell Barack. Okay. When he wakes up in the morning and he puts his feet on the floor, from the time his feet touch the floor to the time he gets to his church or his office or his whatever, school, wherever he's going, he is going to walk across 10,000 blue collar jobs that are still viable today. And I mean, financially, really viable, as in lucrative. So let's not forget that if there's 167 million people considered full employment in the United States, according to the Bureau of Labor Statistics, 77 million of these, and I added them up myself, do something with their hands. Now, if we try to send 167 million people to college, the price of an outlet is going to be $10,000, and you're going to wait 2 years to get that outlet put into your house. So right. It's just a non-starter when I hear things like that. It just goes to show you how uninformed the reality of that people are when it comes to reality. Because again, you can say what you want about any president, but that president drives in a huge Cadillac. They call it the Beast. And that Beast was built by people who made tires and who made steel drive shafts and who made engine blocks and who made electrical wire and who made rubber and chrome and, GPS systems. All of that was built by somebody. So right. I'm sure he wouldn't have wanted everyone to go to college, or he'd be driving around in a SUV with no bulletproof glass. And, it wouldn't be nearly as safe as what he's in now, or it was in at the time. So yeah, those are statements that are just uninformed.
I have some other stats here. 20% of jobs require a college degree. So the vast majority don't. And I think that number is dwindling when you hear about Microsoft and, all these other companies.
Oh, for sure.
Amazon no longer requiring it. 40% of college kids expect to make at least 60K. 17% expect to make more than 80K. And the funny thing is that only 17% of Americans make 100K. Most of which are in the trades,
right?
Most of which are in construction and likely didn't go to college, or they went to college and then got into the trades because they realized that they weren't going to make any money elsewhere. And I think I got this other stat from you. Only 27% of college grads actually have a job related to their major?
Yeah, it's really sad because right now, because of the herd mentality, 40% and the lack of, things like shop class and trade school availability, 40% of kids go to college and not even know why they're going. That's scary. I mean, you're paying money. You don't even know why you're there. 25% of them change their mind on their degree after they've been there a year, another year wasted. And like you said, only 27 to 33% ever use their degree ever. Unless you're saying, I'm going to be a doctor, I'm going to school to med school, I'm going to go be a doctor when I'm done, and there's a doctor's position waiting for me when I get out. And oh, by the way, they're going to bonus me half of my student loans back and pay me $300,000 a year. If you're not in that specific of a path, be very careful, because you don't know why. You don't know what is going to happen to you on the other side of this thing. So yeah, it's pretty scary. And if you're going to operate on my shoulder so I can get back out on the golf course, I want you to know everything there is to know about a knife before you come at me with it. So please learn everything you can.
Yeah.
But if you're just going to learn how to play beer pong, man, there is a whole better way to live your life. That's for sure.
It's funny. I was speaking at Estero High School down here a few months ago, and a young lady wanted to go to nursing school. Great. Cool. My argument would be, you better love nursing because there's a glass ceiling and you can only make so much as a nurse. A lot of money, but only make so much. And she was debating between a state school in Florida or Purdue. And I said, Purdue. Why would you go to Purdue? And you mentioned a stat that everyone gets upset about. The college doesn't cost hundreds of thousands of dollars. It doesn't cost $50,000 a year. Average private school costs $38,000 a year. The average in-state tuition is like $18,000 a year. But Purdue is $60,000 a year out of state tuition.
Yeah.
So 60 times 4 is what, 240 at a 6.5% interest rate on 30 years is over $500,000.
You got it.
And I said, or you can go in-state in Florida, $10,000 or $11,000, whatever the state tuition was. And you on a 6.5% interest rate, it comes out to about $100,000 and you pay it off, a lot quicker than 500, right?
Sure.
With opportunity costs and all these things. And she said, well, I think Purdue has a better program. And I said, when was the last time you went into a doctor's office and asked the nurse where she went to college?
Exactly. Exactly. By the way, when they're putting an IV in your arm, okay, it really doesn't matter if they went to Purdue or to the state school, because there's a protocol for putting an IV in your arm. You're not going to get a better IV in your arm because of that particular thing. So, it really is. It's a thing. And it's cool if you go to Yale and the rest of your life until you're 70, you still wear the Yale sweatshirt so everybody knows you went to Yale. That's fine. I mean, if that drives you, then go ahead and do it. Because most of the people that wear those Yale sweatshirts are between 40 and 60 years old. They're like, oh yeah, I went to Yale. Okay, fine. I'd rather see how you live. I'd rather see how good of a parent you are, how big of a family you have, how much fun you've had in your life, what memories you've created for yourself. Keep the sweatshirt at home. That doesn't do anything for me. So, and unfortunately, people get trapped into that.
Yeah, I agree. I had before, I want you to talk about your next book. But in my last episode, I talked to the guy that started Recon Tools. If you haven't checked that out, Ken, check out his tools. Incredible stuff. What he's doing, he's revolutionized the tape measure, and it's playing into AI and data and
nice.
Keeping traction of measurements on your phone, and it has a laser on it, and it's just the coolest thing. But it's funny because he went to MIT and he had a full scholarship because he was in the Army and whatever. But I asked him, I said, to start Recon Tools, did you need or learn anything from MIT? He said no. He said the only reason he went to MIT is because it was free and because he's got the sweatshirt and, he gets recognition for it.
Yeah.
Anyway, he goes, but yeah, he already had these ideas before, he started that company. So,
and the best part is he's making a killing in tools. I think if that's not the dichotomy of the whole world, I love it.
Basically what he's done is you take this and you can put the new Apple Pro headset on And you can be taking measurements with a laser to the center of a pipe or to, center of an opening or to the corner of a wall or whatever. And you click it and measurements pop up on the screen, and you can mark up an image and send it to other people. Like if you're on a roof doing, cutting plywood or something like that, you could be taking a measurement, clicking a button, and no error of transfer of information. It goes right to the guy on the saw.
Love it.
He came up with that, without needing MIT. So Ken, this isn't, I want to wrap this up. I've taken enough of your time. We're over an hour. That is not the last book from Ken. You either have one that's coming out soon or it just came out. What's the next book from Ken Rusk?
The next book is called Cool Boss. And what it does is, the first one was Blue Collar Cash. And that's really how that really speaks to the end user, how to, create vision in your life and how to take advantage of that and how to build a life that you want for yourself. How to find a company that has a really nice culture in it so that you can grow and thrive in it. But I thought we needed the other side of the coin. Everyone told me, okay, well, how do I create that environment? You have 200 ditch diggers in your office. How do you do that? How do you survive that with culture? And it's such an important thing now because people are looking, I think one of the top things that people are looking for in a company right now is personal well-being. And that can mean a lot of things, but compensation wasn't necessarily the first one. So this book teaches you how to either teach your own boss how to create a cooler culture where you're working currently, or as a boss, it teaches you how can I create the type of culture that will attract people so I don't have this revolving door in the front of my office, spinning in a circle because I can't keep anybody. And it's when I said that 2,500 people to find 200, that was including even my time in all 5 offices around the Midwest of hiring and training people. So it wasn't necessarily just here. But yeah, culture is such an important thing. I had to do this a long time ago because I was competing against, landscapers and everybody else that was out there. But now I've worked so hard on culture that now all these other companies are just coming late to the party. Like, oh, wait, you mean I need to care about my employees now? I need to do cool things for them now. I mean, what's that all about? I just put it in the paper and they walk in the door. That's not the way it is anymore. So yeah, it's called Cool Boss, and it's going to be how to create an office that attracts and keeps really great people.
Yeah, and just in the construction industry, just a note, you're seeing that a lot more in spaces that are being built, a lot more designs that are coming out. All these big-time real estate developers and property owners, they are stuck in a rock and a hard place in cities like San Francisco and LA and a bunch of other ones that people never went back to the office. And they're trying to, the biggest focus every time I talk to an architect or I sit in front of a panel or whoever, the biggest focus on the commercial interiors industry for office space is creating spaces that people not only want to work in, but feel so compelled to be there, they'd rather be there than home. Yeah,
exactly. 100%.
That's where the focus is going. So Ken, I really appreciate you coming on, man.
Yes, sir.
I hope this isn't the last time that I have you on and that we talk. And I hope, maybe even when you get down here sometime and you're not hobbling around, maybe we can play golf. But is there anything else that you'd like to add as a closing statement? Or did we cover it?
All I would say is that, I've read a lot of books. I know a lot of people that have read a lot of books. And one thing I always ask when I see their bookshelves that are full of these books is, well, what did you learn from those, right? What did you take from that one right there? Oh, I don't know, but it was a cool book. I remember I read it. It was a great book. And I'm like, okay, well, how did it change your life though? I mean, what did you take from it and implement into your world? And it hit me that if I heard this the other day, I thought it was cute, so I stole it. If you're not careful, a self-help book is going to be nothing more than a shelf help book. Okay. It's just going to sit on the shelf and do nothing.
That is cute.
So I actually created a course around this book. It's part of my foundation. I give it away to first sons and daughters of the fallen and first responders and whatnot to teach them how. But it's called The Path to a Successful Life. It's 8 sessions. It's 45 minutes a session. It's real simple. Believe me, if you know me, you'll know it's very simple, but it's high impact stuff on how to create that vision for your life. how to take control of your mind and get that vision. I sell it for $179. You get a free book with it. That's $25 value. And I tend to donate that money to charities anyway, because my world was really good before I wrote this book. So, and I'm very grateful for that. I practice like you do every single day. So, yeah, if someone wants to spend $179, they will definitely, I guarantee you that you will be thinking differently in as little as a few hours of doing some good hard thinking.
And where do they get that?
You go right to kenrusk.com and you'll see book and course, and it'll lead you right to where we need to go.
All right, you heard it, kenrusk.com. I echo that. I have, if you look over my shoulder, I don't have those book covers up there to seem smart. I have it as a reminder. A lot of the time I sit back in my chair and I look at the covers and I just think about, one or two things from each book, whether it's, I think Frederick Douglass right here, Jordan Peterson, you see Churchill and Lincoln's name there.
Oh, yeah.
I got both political parties up here, David Goggins, all kinds of people from history. And I don't want to forget at least the most profound thing that I pulled from each one. So I try to remind myself in that way. And
our veterans too. If you don't feel like you want to do this for yourself, you can go to veteransuccess.org. That's where my Comfort, Peace, and Freedom Foundation is. And you can buy a course for a returning vet to help them get their life straight so that they don't think about the dark side of where they've been and what they've done. And we're doing a lot with that too, supporting our soldiers. So please take care of them, even if it's not something for you.
That's beautiful. We definitely don't do enough for our men and women in uniform.
Yeah.
So with that, I'm gonna give it a close. This is the Construction Mentor podcast. I appreciate everybody for hanging in there. I hope you found this as impactful as I did. I know I learned some things. And I was able to reiterate some things, just as we spoke about with books, from a very profound book that I read, written by Ken Rusk, Blue Collar Cash. Check that out. Be on the lookout for the next one. And as always, you can catch me at The Construction Mentor on TikTok, YouTube, Instagram. You can catch this podcast on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, and Spotify. And I appreciate everybody. I will see you next time.